Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying all day so far. A remarkable day of Call of Duty today. Surely the fastest ever day we have had for 3 matches in a row, because we've had some 3-0s this weekend. There is a big feeling right now that some teams are accelerating, others are massively regressing in the league at the moment. Some trash talk going down on the day as well. How are Los Angeles Thieves getting on? Certainly at the upper end of the league. Scrappy seems to believe it is literally them and FaZe right now. We had a 4-team league last year. We may have a 2-team league right now. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Of course, we start the day with the Falcons. And I don't know, Clay was talking about it. I don't want to dive into this series in massive detail, but I think there is obviously discussions behind the scenes as to what Falcons need to do next, what the plan should actually be here, because clearly it's not working out. And you look at the numbers and you see Dahoom and you see Wixel going positive near enough anyway. Like they were getting outslayed by what, 6, 7, 11, 8 kills. And yet they lost by basically 100+ points, which isn't exactly optimal. More like 9 kills, I suppose, but still, the point still stands. And then you get moments like this, right? It's like, I said this a few weeks ago now, but it still remains true. Once you know that Falcons are going to lose, you respect the fact that this is going to happen, and then you just watch it unfold, then it, you know, it can become more entertaining to watch. But still in this moment here, we know that Falcons aren't very good at this position. We saw them before climbing up the ladder and everything, and it all went wrong. This was another instance here where Estriel, of course the guys on the rocker are just laughing at the way the situation unfolds, because Porlex goes down 1v3, Estriel slides around the corner, and obviously the second guy here into whom really has to get this trade. But even just the way they approached it obviously wasn't optimal. You don't really see great teams losing rounds like that. They go down 0-2. And it's interesting because we've seen a lot of the reaction from the OpTic fans, understandably, given their situation has been rather negative. For Gentlemates, it's been kind of the opposite. There's been a feeling from the Gentlemates fans that, okay, you guys have figured it out, that obviously Falcons are beyond saving at this point, even to such an extent that we've got Rocker taking hostages. And this was the discussion during Major 1 in Madrid, whether Falcons were going to get scrims, because teams were seemingly refusing to scrim them. Then other teams have come out over the last few days and said, no, we actually are scrimming them, but I mean, how can they improve from playing Falcons right now? Nameless made the point on the show yesterday on the broadcast that with the way that OpTic are playing, they wouldn't win a Challengers tourney right now. Well, Falcons would be absolutely nowhere near winning it as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they did manage to win a stage of the Elite last year in Europe, but they've not been a great Challengers team historically. They went to the World Cup last year and, you know, they didn't win. They went to a Game 5 with Nastie's team, I think, but it wasn't exactly great. And then they've come into the league and, you know, it doesn't feel like they're getting any better. And even if they are, teams like Rocker are improving dramatically. And you get moments like this where Nero's taking hostages, right? Like, you know, it is just embarrassing to watch. I think it's pretty embarrassing for the league. I mean, who's going to tune into these games? I mean, what's the point? Like, you know who's going to win. It's a foregone conclusion at this point. And they play the minor next weekend against OpTic. But, I mean, that is now the talking point, isn't it, right? The fact that Falcons next weekend, they play the other worst team in the league, or at least that's the way that things have looked lately. And OpTic at least can watch this series and be confident in the knowledge that they are not the worst team in the league. And even with how OpTic have played, they'll still feel confident for next weekend they can beat the Falcons. But still, it's not about beating the Falcons, right? It's about, for OpTic anyway, beating Toronto, who they play after they beat Falcons, hypothetically. But, of course, Vegas Falcons are now on a, 19 loss streak in hardpoint in a row. This is, of course, unprecedented stuff. And even as Falcons say, back to the drawing board we go. And, of course, this does raise questions like, what might they actually do? Is it now time, right? Like, we're going into the second minor of the season. They're currently on 0 points in the CDL. They're on 0 victories in hardpoint. Is now the time to say, all right, the experiment has failed? Because I don't see it getting any better than this. You know, we've got some replies. Let me just pick a random one and see what it translates into. So, you know, I think there's probably a few other replies somewhat similar to this. This is a long one, so maybe this is worth watching as well. Okay, I'm not going to read it out, but that seems rather entertaining to me. So, there's clearly frustration within the fan base. They want changes over there. And in the same way that the French team and Gentlemates, they have one French player in Lynz. He's not going to get dropped. He's not going to go anywhere. There's potentially a similar approach that Falcons could take, but if they are going to do it, now might be the time. Hook is available. Hook was born in Saudi Arabia, let's not forget. But of course, he would communicate in English, as would Clay, who he's got some experience with. I wouldn't be surprised if Clay is pushing for that, or at least thinks that might be a viable option. Clay did say this on Twitter today. Incredibly frustrating performance out of us so far. I want everyone to know we're doing everything we can to right the ship and get some wins on the board. Full faith, we're a better team than we've been showing. Have to translate our practice into match day. So, you know, you couldn't see a more classic tweet from a Call of Duty perspective. Is he right? They're better in scrims? Probably. I mean, they can't be much worse, can they? Let's be real. But also, we have seen some practice. They played Fellows team and stuff, and they've been able to win maps. It just feels like, for whatever reason, on game day, it all falls apart, the decision-making and everything. And, yeah, I don't know what they need to change, but clearly this current strategy is not working. So, GG's, another red carpet, Exon at a 0.6, King at a 0.7. King's probably been their most impressive player to me. Like, Dahoom and Wixel, sure. Dahoom was okay this series, but again, it's like, I don't want to fall into the trap of looking at numbers when these guys know they're going to lose the series, and therefore there is definitely a level there when you watch Falcons play of playing individually for some degree of respectability. And that's not how you play winning COD, but it's maybe how you don't get dropped. So, you know, that's the issue that the Falcons are currently grappling with. But this was the series I really wanted to get into here, because Toronto played the Thieves, and I was expecting a pretty close game. Toronto have been reasonably good, I would say, as of late. Yes, they had, you know, poor performance of the Major in the first match back they played as well, but Thieves handled business here in a way that they probably wouldn't have expected to. Game 1, though, was bonkers, because JoeDeceives was absolutely frying on the red card, which he tends to do. But for some reason, Toronto had many instances of getting, you know, 4 dead and having opportunities, certainly on P1 and on P2, to lock down some time, which they didn't. They were leaving the hill white, kind of similar to that crazy hardpoint on red card that we saw yesterday. CleanX, got to talk about him real quick, because he had such a good start to stage 1. He wasn't as good at the Major. And CleanX has done this now for the last few years when he starts the year really well, and he does finish the year well as well. But his second Major, he seems to lose something and takes a while to figure it out again. So CleanX has not been very good this stage. That is notable. But JoeDeceives was phenomenal this map, but in the end it actually didn't matter. This, I mean, if you look at this scoreboard here, or minimap anyway, you'll think, wow, no way, GG's, right? Toronto win the map because, you know, they're up 234 to 217. They've got the hold, but no, they get broken. Thieves get in the front door, and they get the rotation going as well. And HyDra wins a massive gunfight to, I mean, literally was the gunfight for the game, basically, over there. 250 to 242, absolutely bag of game 1. JoeDeceives just misses out on the record, and he also just misses out on the 50 bomb. I think the record, what is XNID, isn't it, against OpTic at a 52. And yeah, crucial kill for HyDra in the end. Obviously, Thieves are buzzing about getting the win in that way, because it was an important game in the sense of Envoy and Scrappy. Their former organisation was Toronto. They played with Insight and CleanX last year. Bit of a grudge match in some regard. After they made the change, Adam Madamu, right, of the Toronto side, he made a couple of statements on the matter, and we'll see that here in a second. Of course, there was also the comments that Ghosty was making down the radio. Like, I'm not exactly sure what he said, but he's quite clearly here, press the button to turn on the game chat and talking some trash, because at the end of the day, Thieves know full well, and Toronto probably know themselves, that Toronto was securing kind of a lot of kills that map. Were they translating that into actual success in terms of points scored? No. I'm sure there was lots of talk about playing for kills down the radio and, you know, not capitalizing on opportunity, shall we say. So Toronto lose the game 1, and after that, it was pretty smooth sailing. I did manage to find this clip up here, because when JoeDeceives first came into the league, look, he's clearly an excellent player with a super high ceiling, but Scrappy was one of the ones talking trash on him, right? Of course, after he was noted from ranked play, really comes into the scene and starts making some notice. Scrappy was one of the ones talking trash back in the day, so interesting to see how that worked out today. But then you got plays like this, and I think for Thieves, the way they lost the Major may be one of the best things to happen to them in the longer term, because they knew they were so close, but a loss in a Game 7 Round 11, losing Game 5 Round 11 in the winners' finals to FaZe, that will have really frustrated them, and for good reason as well. So I'm sure they've put lots of work into their search and destroy, and HyDra individually would have been massively focused on it because of the play that he made. Game 7 Round 11, losing the Major, the first one of the season. HyDra comes in, gets, well, effectively 2 kills here. Insight finds himself in a 1 versus 1, and HyDra chases him down, gets 1 bullet in the back from Insight. Insight 6 and 2, great 1v1 player, and then just slides down and guns him. Crazy win from HyDra. They win the game in the end very comfortably. HyDra has a monster performance, and basically the same thing happened again on the map 3. Octane was enjoying the trash talk from Ghosty game 1. This map 3, though, was all about Envoy, and I think that's the impressive thing for Thieves right now. Going into the season, there was no doubt on Scrappy. HyDra didn't have a great stage 1, but I think, to me, there's no doubt on HyDra's level and his ability, and I think you're actually seeing that more and more with what's currently happening at Gentlemates. That team is in freefall, and really all they changed was no HyDra, right? So clearly he was doing rather a lot for that team to be successful over the last couple of years. But Envoy was bad last year on Toronto, sometimes. He wasn't always bad. He had his stints, but mostly in Respawn he was a bit of a liability last year. And there was a question as to whether he was the right man to bring over, rather than CleanX, right, when Scrappy and the team made that call. I thought it was the right move. And maybe it's proving to be, because Envoy this game seems to be back to his normal self, where he's very impactful, makes the right decisions, and occasionally has a takeover performance. That was certainly the case here on the Game 3. Ghosty, I think you kind of know what you're going to get from him as well. So that's the scary thing about Thieves, when Envoy is dropping 8 sprees for a near 40 bomb, because, you know, that's when they get scary. They're scary already, but when Envoy is also delivering big performances and overshadowing HyDra sometimes, it's basically game over for the opposition, right? So Toronto going into this season, they would have hoped, they would have expected, they would have liked to be a team in the conversation for 4th best team in the game, maybe 3rd best team if OpTic fall off, or one of the other teams fall off. It's turned out that OpTic are the ones in a bit of trouble right now. But Scrappy was loving life. He was obviously getting right up close to the camera, letting his thoughts be very clear to Toronto. And look, at the end of the day, it made sense what they did. Toronto didn't really have the money to keep hold of those guys, so they decided to leave. Thieves was the better opportunity, and I don't think it's any ill will against the boys on Toronto, but still an important series for them to assert dominance, Los Angeles Thieves, over that organization from last year. As Ghosty says, you know, sloppy hardpoint, we got the job done. There was also, though, the big tweet I thought here was from Scrap. Before we get to that, this was the Adamu tweet. He made the point September 25th, 2024. After the roster changes that the respective teams made, we will be a better team than LAT in 2025. As of yet, that has not proven quite to be the case. And Scrap says this: I think a lot of teams are forgetting the win condition in hardpoint, but what do I know, right? So clearly Scrappy thinks, oh, we're pretty damn good at the game right now. We might be the best team. We're very close to it anyway. Lost to FaZe in an incredibly close fashion back in Madrid. And Scrappy's like, effectively, this is the Shotzzy tweet, isn't it? But in slightly different words. It's the Shotzzy tweet from earlier in the year when he was like, you guys are terrible, don't know how to play the game. Scrappy's like, yeah, you guys are terrible, don't know how to play the game, but I'm not going to quite say it in the same way, and saying, look, the win condition in hardpoint is to get to 250 first, not to drop 50 kills. So I think that's the point that Scrappy was making on the day. And of course, TJ is going to say, well, it's easy for you to say you've got HyDra on your team, just tell him to go drop 40. But, you know, the same honesty kind of applies to Slasher and TJ Halley with how he's been playing as of late. But it was a very clean 3-0 for Thieves in the end. The game 2 was pretty dominant. The game 3 was, you know, defense back and forth, but when it mattered, Envoy with a big takeover. 1.3 from HyDra. Big series from him, all things considered. CleanX with a bit of a rough one generally on the other side. The final series to get through was remarkable in its speed. Definitely want to give huge credit to Cloud9 because they've made massive progress, but I thought this series would at least be competitive, right? Like, I thought Boston would put up some sort of a fight here, but clearly Cloud9 are on a massively positive trajectory. It seems like accuracy, whatever's going on over there from a head coaching perspective, they've figured it out. Sib's figured it out. Attach is getting in the point. I mean, he had like 3 minutes in Hill this map. Yeah, 2 minutes 40 in the Hill he had at the end. That was crushing. Kremp, he always tries to turn up against his former teams. Certainly in this case, Boston is one of those. The Vault Search and Destroy was a masterclass. I will say there was lots of talk during this series on the servers because, I mean, Boston were just getting absolutely obliterated. And I think Boston have regressed. I mentioned that earlier today. New York have got better. I wasn't sure where they would meet exactly, but clearly Cloud9 today absolutely crushed them. And what a turnaround from them. That's going to give them huge confidence going into the minor as well. I think they're a team to watch right now. Certainly, going into the year, we expected this team to be Dark Horse material, top 4 material possibly. That was their ceiling anyway, maybe even higher, who knows? And now they're really starting to deliver. But as Paulix was talking about it, playing apparently on a Denver server for this series, there was talk they should play on a Texas server because Boston are based in Boston and Cloud9 are based in LA. So, you know, playing Texas might make sense, but apparently they're playing a Denver server, which far closer to LA, right? So, I don't know, the Boston guys haven't tweeted about it yet, but it was talk about it here, and people were like, yeah, they should have played the Texas server, kind of unclear why they didn't. But these were the overall numbers, and this was one of the more crushing performances, and frankly, one of the more more crushing weekends of Call of Duty that you are ever going to see. So many 3-0s, I mean, out of nowhere. The minor is still very interesting, but I will say that we went from a league where FaZe and Thieves maybe were the best, Falcons were clearly the worst, and everyone else was in the mix, to now, you know the best teams, you know the worst teams, potentially, but then there's kind of a clear discrepancy now between the teams that are on the up and the teams that are certainly on the down. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.